Hey guys, it's Mathel here once again, and I want to give you a follow-up video and more of a conclusion as to the Poet's Pen Occultist that I started about a bit over a week ago. Ended up playing it for about 40 hours total, which is longer than most characters that I've done quite recently. Usually I do a character for about 30 hours playtime at most, and then move on as it hits like level 90 or so. This, however, is on the Flashback, League, and Solo, Self-Found, and Hardcore, so it does take a lot more maps to get to certain levels because I have much shittier maps. The character itself is worse geared, and overall just a bit slower than what I would usually build on a softcore league. Now there is quite a lot of craziness going on in this Flashback race, as you can see with these clips, sometimes coming across several Harbingers with beyond stacking, with all kinds of other bullshit. And the proximity bubbles are probably my least favorite thing about this entire league. There are just so fucking many of them, as you can see throughout this specific clip. Just non-stop proximity bubbles being spawned from Harbingers with the right monsters, and my god is it annoying. The character itself though was holding up pretty well, as you can see. The Temp Chain's Blasphemy, that's extremely strong when it's got curse effectiveness, really helps slow down enemy monsters and aid the playstyle of a character like this one. So it wasn't the fastest character in the world through its own movement speed, because, you know, it's an occultist and I have to use wands, thus I can only run and flame dash. So it's not the fastest thing in the world there, but the damage was respectable, the safety was mostly there, and the gear requirement was pretty minimal, as this character did only use one Poet's Pen, and then nothing really special besides that. So it did clear fairly well. I did get up to level 92.5 in the end before dying, and I will show you that rip clip in just a couple minutes. But overall it was pretty amazing that my character got to as far as he did, because in plenty of the other characters I played this league, I didn't have any close calls. I was completely steamrolling the content, and then all of a sudden one big event got me killed with one really stupid circumstance or one really stupid set of monsters, and I just died. This character, however, nearly died probably like 40 times up to level 92, and yet every single time I just barely squeaked away and got away and managed to keep leveling. So it was really touch and go here or there, but ultimately we did survive up until quite a long time. And there's just so much shit in the Flashback, Hardcore, Solo, Self-Found area that it's just ultimately I don't think worth doing. I did have fun as Solo Self-Found, I did have fun on Hardcore, but I do think I would have had a lot more fun on Softcore and not Solo Self-Found. I simply put just value being able to fill in my own gear gaps just way too much through the trade aspect, that Solo Self-Found just gets a bit old after a few weeks. So in any case, those are most of the clips of how the character went. It was pretty good, and now here's a couple of little close calls and then the actual rip itself. So just diving into a pack of monsters like that without any flasks up almost got me completely wrecked. Coming across this pack of asshole monsters here, so I believe this map had enemies cannot be slowed, and that, as I learned, is one of the worst mods out there for my character. Enemies cannot be slowed and immune to taunt, so my decoy totems don't do anything, and my temp chains doesn't do a single thing, neither does any of my chill. This is a legendary beast. He's got a lot of movement speed, and he just basically never gives up and doesn't relent, and I cannot afford to stand still and tank any of that, since most of my defense is tied to temp chains, and we just barely got out of that one alive, but I really didn't deserve to. And then finally the actual death, though there are plenty more clips I could fish for because I had a lot of close calls. The actual death was on a map that I've already run 3 or 4 times on this character, a tier 14 dig with monster damage on it. I was feeling pretty okay there, just fine, and then all of a sudden about, I don't know, 5 extra tornadoes spawned on top of me. I couldn't get away in the way I was trying to, and I got myself just blown up. So there I am, I'm fine, it's clear. I get the boss to, you know, the little next pushover phase, and all of these tornadoes with monster damage on the tier 14 spawn and just start shitting on me. I panic, I try and get out of there, and I die. I don't like logging out, and that's why I don't do that. I do only really believe in portaling out, and I kind of fucked it up trying to portal out there. So the character did go through quite a few revisions as I leveled him and tried to figure it out, and it did hit 92 point 5, 6, something like that, in quite a lot of maps, and I finally got my Uber Lab on this league at around level 90, so we're talking 3 weeks or some shit, and probably like 100 hours playtime before I found all my trials, a level 90, an 89, an 85, an 84, an 82, and an 80 before I found all 6 of my trials. So solo self-found is completely bullshit for that at least one reason, but like I said, it's just really not my playstyle because I want to be able to buy my own items and have control of my characters in what they can and can't do rather than be dictated by my drops. It's just a bit of a difference in playstyles and game playing style. So anyway, 92, only died 4 times so far, just kidding, it's now 5. The Occultist went pretty well because it was a lot of curse effectiveness, and for pure mapping, cursing and curse effectiveness is really strong, but once you start getting into actual endgame bosses, that's when curses start to suck a lot more ass. And there is a good example of that because I rely largely on my curses for damaging and slowing things, and as you can see here, I hit with 1 blade fall for about, let's say, 90,000, which is pretty similar to my Poet's Pen Pathfinder character. However, if you tick the Shaper/Guardian box, our damage gets cut drastically because curse effectiveness is such a shit thing for these bosses. As you can see, 80% less effective your curses, so without that you are really strong in mapping, and was really good for this sort of gameplay, the solo self-found, just mapping and trying to get to higher levels. Once you get into the actual bossing and all that, it gets a lot worse, having to deal a lot less curse effectiveness against them. So that's where the Pathfinder felt a bit better because it was built more for bossing, but this character was strictly built for low gear and mapping in hardcore. And I'll, as always, give you guys the path of building to play around with. I did have to change up quite a few little passives here or there, something like 200% life in the end, had to get a little bit of accuracy and dexterity. Only had 1 jewel socket because that's all that was available to me for jewels. This is the best one I managed to get. And otherwise, just trying to get crit and crit multi wherever I can, and some curse effectiveness. And ultimately, still only 1 Poet's Pen, so like I said, if you get a second one, your output is increased by like just about 50%, because you have Blade Fall in 1 Poet's Pen, you'd have Glacial Cascade in your other one, and then you'd still have a Glacial Cascade most likely in your actual cast on crit setup, which I have over here with some pretty garbage gems like additional accuracy, because I can't get accuracy anywhere else. Attack speed, really shouldn't need to do that either, should be able to get your own attack speed thresholds happening, and I did manage to randomly 6-link some, I guess, okay chests that I managed to roll with Chaos Orbs as a Shaper chest, because what you're looking for is a bit of spell crit chance. This is the best I got, managed to 6-link it, didn't really need the 6-link, but hey, it kind of helps. Because in my current setup, a Frenzy into a cast on crit, that's how you get your attacks going. Just Frenzy gives you your Blade Fall. We then get some Cascade through the Frenzy cast on crit setup. It's really a lot weaker than just having a second Poet's Pen, but it's the best we could do. And then also have a Hypothermia there, as well as faster attacks, accuracy, and cast on crit. But the actual Blade Fall over here has then Fizz to Lightning and Concentrated Effect, and largely Controlled Destruction when I'm just plain mapping. So Conk Effect is for actual single target. So I ended up going full LE conversion. My Blade Fall here has just a bunch of cold, then a bunch of lightning damage, because I am running Crimsorrow. And in the end, I made that change simply because Curse on Hit, Orb of Storms, and LE Weakness is going to be so goddamn strong for my character against general mapping that it just made sense. Instead of going kind of physical, I went full elemental so that I can freeze, shatter, and shock enemies with all of that sort of stuff. And elemental weakness is just very strong, so I was running 3 curses in the form of Assassin's Mark on Blasphemy and Temp Chains on Blasphemy, and then Curse on Hit, Orb of Storms with LE Weakness. So the important curses there are Assassin's Mark and Temp Chains all the time, and Orb of Storms is just situational, where it then gives you Arcane Surge and the Elemental Weakness against tougher enemies. So if I had a second Poet's Pen, it would have been a lot more damage, but I didn't, so best I could do was grab a Demon's Horn or any sort of wand that's shaped, and try and roll spell crit, physical damage as extra lightning, put a bit of a crit multi on it, got a lightning damage roll too, and that does still add a good chunk of damage to the Blade Fall and to the Glacial Cascade, but if you have a second Poet's Pen, you get a lot more damage out of it. Now in the end, I also managed to jam a Herald of Ash into the setup by taking a 4% reduced mana node. I really only needed this much mana unreserved so I can cast my Frenzies, and with Arcane Surge up from Orb of Storms, typically I would get enough mana regen happening, but it is a bit iffy, and Herald of Ash really isn't that necessary, so I was running just the 2 curses for quite a long time, but you can fit an extra Herald of Ash or Herald of Ice in if you try really hard. And then as well as that, there's really not too much else to mention. That's basically what I did for the most part on the character. I did run Warlord's Mark instead of Ellie Weakness for quite a while for safety. Ultimately, just an Atziri Flask, I think, for the Leech, and having much better damage from another damage curse was better than Warlord's Mark, so I dropped it, but that is up to you guys. If you really want extra Leech in that sort of setup, you can definitely do it. I guess at the end of the day, I'm not even sure I'd really recommend this character as something to build. It was a decent Occultist build, and if you look at the Occultist ladder for solo self-found hardcore, I ended up like 13th or 14th Occultist, and number 1 through to like 25 are all Righteous Fire or Essence Drain, and I'm the only guy doing something a bit dumber. There's maybe another 1 or 2, but yeah, it's really, I don't know, kind of not the most synergy. It was just fun for what it was, and I think if you're going to play Poet's Pen, I'd still much rather recommend the Pathfinder I played, or more something like a Scion, maybe even Inquisitor, but for solo self-found, for really low gear requirements, I think this is just fine. If you want a much better, faster, stronger character, probably go the Pathfinder, because these weapons are really strong and they can be built around right through to the end game if you build accordingly. But if you've only got the 1 and barely any gear, you can follow something like this, get it going. It's pretty fun, it's effective, probably not the best thing out there though, and that's probably all I've got to say about him. So thank you very much for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video and the character and the solo self-found hardcore on Flashback League, and I'll see you next time.